Easy Troop. So today's video, we are going to make our track in the style of Makoto. He does a really soulful DnB type vibe, but often switches up into the much darker side of DnB, juxtaposing that kind of soulful, happy liquid with some real dark club vibe. He goes off pattern drums, big pads, soulful samples, a really fun mix to do. And I'm really liking his 2023 tune, Show Me. So we're going to make something in that style. Down below will be the project for you to download. First month of this video being out, it'll be massively discounted before it goes up to full price. So that is your reward right there for being subscribed to the channel. Subtle hint. And let's just get straight into it. All right, so here's the break built out. Bear in mind, we haven't put a tune together yet, so it might be altered when it's mixed, but here's what we've got. All right, so let's break it down sound by sound. Right, so we're not remaking the same track, but I want to do the same kind of rhythms and shuffle. Now the Makoto tune, it drops on 32, but what actually happens is we have an extra kick here, right in the build up to it. So we go, we're always expecting that kick on the one, and it's just never there. Now that kind of gets filled in with what we've done with the percussion here. So if we have a look at the shakers first, it's a nice simple pattern on the one, on the two, and then we go into eighths, and we've just got a little accent on the one each time. It's just a little click. Just hear it in your left ear there. And that just gives us like a little push-pull, right? A counting time with the music, and it's pushing and pulling because it's slow, and then it's quick and slow and quick. And that gives kind of the ebb and flow to the track. Right, I think the next thing that we need to do is figure out what we're going to have vocal sample wise. So I've limited this to Logic here. Obviously, if you download this project and you've got vocals from Splice, or you want to record vocals over it, be my guest. But for now, I'm limited to this, so we'll get creative. We're going to drag that in. That's Andre Lyric 19. Yeah, I reckon we can work with that. Alright, and we're going to use Andre Lyric 20. Now I don't want to overkill it, so we're just going to limit ourselves to those two. And I'm going to build a little bit of an intro style thing using that first kind of like da-da-da thing. And then we're going to drop the actual like lyric here in that little silent chunk. I want this kind of like weird vocal sitting in the background here. I'll find out where the sort of start of it is. Alright, and we're going to make it real slow fade in. Alright, so this is the bass direction I've gone in. It's still inspired by Show Me, so it kind of builds up and swells up over a bar. This is what I've built, and I'll show you how we do it. Today's video is sponsored by DistroKid. They let me get my music out to all of the major distributors, and they do that at a price an independent artist can easily afford. If you're ready to get your music or beats out there and want to release an unlimited amount of music each year, check the link in the description below for a discount off of your first year of unlimited distribution with DistroKid. All right, so we have used Alchemy, and it's a relatively simple patch. You'll be able to do this in any synth as long long as you can choose square waves and saw waves, and you can do unison, adjust the sync of the unison, and have a detune. So, you know, something like Hive, Serum will be able to do this with Get Something Close in Massive, Harmer, just about any of those will be able to do it for you. It's just a square wave, set relatively low level, so -6 dB. There's not a huge amount going on here, apart from we've got 3 semitones up on the sync. We've pushed it up to 2 on unison, 23% detune. That just gives us this. As you can hear, that's kind of the fundamental of the sound. Now, without the filtering going on, it's just that. It's just a ripping square wave, right? The filter's what's doing all the shaping and all the feel. Switch on the other square wave. Big reinforcement here. Here we've got a similar thing. 1 semitone on the sync, 3 voices, and detune's a little bit less, like a little bit tighter, a little bit more in tune. And we're down 1 octave over here, down 12 semitones. So that's why it's giving loads of reinforcement. That's adding our bass end. We're taking the saw wave here. Further reinforcement, just a single saw wave. This is sitting dead center. Down 1 octave. And the last one, another saw wave here. This has got some automation on the volume. So when all the automation's switched on, it turns up and kind of pushes out over time, right? You can see that happening here. We've got 5 waves on it here. So unison's up at 5, really heavily detuned. That's what does all of the spreading. Ready? That's what gives it a big stereo push as the filter comes out. Now ready? That oscillator D there, where we get all that stereo, it literally only happens at like the last moment. And the more we push up this filter here, which is controlled via the AHDSR2, the more that's going to open up, so we can automate that later. So let's explain what's going on here. There are 3 automations happening on the filter itself. The cutoff's got 2 things linked to it. It's being automated by an LFO and the AHDSR. So the LFO is what's making it wobble, okay? So it's only linked to it just a tiny little bit, and it's done at a sync rate of 1/8. So if you were to look at our rhythm before, and we think like house beat 1, 2, 3, 4, our beat is on 8ths, which is 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. That is what we're synced to. We're synced to that kind of pacing. So it's wobbling on the and, if you will. We can see that going on here. And the wobble goes back and forth, and it's being pushed up and open by this AHDSR right here. This is set so it opens up over the course of the bar and pushes up to as much as we want it to here. Now, because of the depth, we can automate that so it opens up more later if we want to. Or we can dial it back so it just sits and wobbles in the background as well. And we're going to make use of that later when we like bring the vocal layer in. We don't want all of this going on and getting in the way of it. We can use the depth just to dial it back and control it, but still have it so it's all sitting there. Yeah, so it opens up over those portions of the bar. It's all controlled by that depth. The drive is doing the same thing. It's linked to the same control. But that just pushes up consistently every single time just to distort it as it rises up. And that, my friends, is quite literally it for setting it up. If you download the project, it will be in here for you as Makoto Bass 1. In the effects, there are a couple of other little bits going on. So I've got a distortion at the bottom here, and the mech distortion here pushes up the same connection that is on the drive, but it just pushes it up a little bit. What's nice about that is we can change the whole bass tone later if we want to. We just just having that little push I just found just gave that little like sprinkling in the high end right at the end. Now I can hear something going on while listening to this in isolation. I want to fix it. You can hear when some of the lower notes or the lowest note finishes. Hopefully you heard it there. There's a little pop and a click. We can rectify that relatively simple. It's going to very likely be the ADSR here. It builds up and it's got a very, very short tail off. We're going to have to give it a bit more of a release than that. Or go the other way and give it an even shorter release. That's getting it just there. The other thing that might help with that is changing the quality setting. Currently set to great. If I set it to ultra, that might help for us. You can see it's barely touching the CPU here. That might help us out as well. That's it for that. The only other thing going on here is I've got a compressor, which is on, as you see, Makoto base 1. It is my FET SIDE preset. What FET SIDE does is it's a FET compressor that side chains. So over here in the side chain, it is linked into Makoto style kick. And we've set with a relatively fast attack, 18 milliseconds, super quick release of 25 milliseconds, and it's just knocking the bass back by about 5 dB when the drums are in, so that it cuts through nicely like that. Continue building up that introduction section. We need some pads and other sounds to pick out from. I know a bunch of you aren't classically trained. I'm not classically trained. It took me like 15 years to feel somewhat competent on the keyboard. So what I tend to do in these videos is show you little hacky ways of working around things. I was just going to play the chords out, but I think what I'm going to do instead is show you another little hacky way where you can still play your keyboard even if you've not got an NKS. So use something like Alchemy in Logic and yeah, still always hit chords and the right notes. Check this out. So the thing I want to show you is if we go into MIDI effects over here on the Alchemy channel, we've got some things that you'll probably never reach for normally, but there's this one called the transposer. Yeah, what this does is if you've got like a short keyboard, you can press, say here, or you can transpose up. And it does higher keys and whatnot for you. Muzzy would be proud with the F minor factory. So let's do F natural minor, and look, it now blocks out all those keys, right? Now the thing about that is it will assign a different key if you press the wrong key, even though it records the right key. So we just excuse the state of the keyboard. So at the minute we're in F minor, right? Let's say you want to play a chord, but you don't know your chords in that key. So instead of doing something like, I don't know, you end up pressing, it goes all wonky. Well, with the transposer on, you can go and press C, D, E. Neither of these are in the key, but it's going to put them in the right place. So you can actually just go skip every other white note, and you're going to get a chord that works every time. So the transposer is taking the notes that you've got wrong and gone wonky on, and putting them in the right place. Now if you record it, Logic's still going to record all the notes that you pressed in the wrong place, but we can fix them in the piano roll as well if you need to. I'll show you how we'll do that in a second. Watch this. Bring the transposer up so you can see the keys we should have. I pressed C, E and G. E shouldn't be there, so we can highlight those notes and we can fix it in the piano roll as well by using the scale quantize over here. We put it in natural minor, so we're matching what was up here, and then we bring it to F, but we can now see that it's actually done that for us. And now it's hit C, D sharp, G. If I'm playing something and I've messed something up and I'm like, what friggin' note have I hit that's wrong? I'll highlight everything, do this, and I'll see one note go boop, like, ah, there we go. I use it all the time. It's a tool to help you learn totally. It can be used as a crutch. I don't care. As long as you're creating and enjoy what you create, it doesn't matter. Ignore anyone that tells you otherwise. Right, that's a good start. Now we need that to resolve in some way. All right, I think what we need here as well is maybe a sudden change just here. Because genuinely, sometimes I have to play around and find the chord idea and find what works. I'm not like a magician. I don't just play something out and it works every time. And I like to experiment rather than try and, just pull the same thing out the hat every single time. And the reason I'm doing this kind of in the style of Makoto does that. You get chord progressions and pad styles and drum patterns that you don't expect. And that's what we're trying to work into here. Right, we might need to move this up an octave as well. It's quite a dark pad sound. We can take the pads away here. We've got some like awkward off patterns, but again, this is what Makoto does. Things not happening right on the 16, the kicks not landing on the 1. It's all that kind of like mixed up, throw you through a loop kind of thing. Now we're really starting to build up. So I want to do some things to the pads here, especially in this set. I want this to be a much more like gritty soul type feeling sampled pad. I know Alchemy pretty well, so I'm going to dive into Alchemy and add some like vinyl grit and stuff to it. Again, you don't have Alchemy, use like Waves vinyl sampler, that kind of thing, or Bit Crusher. Just get creative within your own space. If you use Alchemy, feel free to follow along. Or just download the project and then you've got everything done and you can experiment from there. All right, so what we want to do with the pads, firstly, I want them to swell a bit more in terms of the filter. So going to Alchemy, we're going to go into the advanced mode. As you see on the label, currently the filter is switched off, which is actually really good. It means I don't have to faff around in other stuff. I can literally go filter on, dial that back. And now I can hear that it's really faded out. Lovely, that's actually what I want to happen. Isn't life easy sometimes? We're going to give it some feel, so I'm going to use the 12 dB gritty, because I might use the drive a bit. I want to find out where I want it to start off. I want to be able to hear it straight away. There's nice. So on that cutoff, make sure I got it highlighted. We're going to go modulation on, and I'll give it its own envelope. So I can go ADSR envelope. There's already a bunch, so I'm just going to make a new one, make my life nice and easy. Depth wise, I want it to open right up. So zoom, punch it to 100. It's going to take the cutoff from there, which is 800 hertz ish, 770, and pump it right the way up with a little bit of an attack like this. And Alchemy, what people don't realise is you can actually grab the curve as well and adjust it, so you don't have to have like a pumped up curve. You can make it more linear, because this makes everything happen pretty quickly. So if you're struggling and you're having to like pump the time up too much, it's still too quick, you can pull it down and give yourself like a logarithmic curve, and then you can dial it right back. Get more things like that, right? Now we can go nice quick attack. We still get that sweep up. That's quite nice. It like breathes between the pad now. I'm going to take the resonance. I'm going to do the opposite thing to the resonance. I'm going to pump it up a bit much here. There's probably a bit too much, but I'm going to dial that back using the same thing. So while it's highlighted, switch it on. Now I need to grab the ADSR 5. I'm going to pull that back like this. And we go, whoosh. It's cool, isn't it? All right, so in Alchemy, these little blue lights tell me I'm using oscillator A, I'm using oscillator B, That's got a sample in that one, and that's how this is being made. Oh look, natural wood flute. Yeah, that kind of makes sense. But in C's not being used. Sweet, that means I can make use of it. So what I'm going to do is use this to add the little bit of grit that I was after. At the minute, you've got all this like additive stuff going on and whatnot. It's switched off, so it doesn't matter. What I want exists over in this bit here, in VA. Voltage amplitude, I can't remember. We're going to switch on noise, and now, oh, absolutely nothing happens. How weird. I have to switch the engine on, that's why. There we go. Now we've got loads of horrendous noise. I don't want loads of white noise though. What I want is this right here, vinyl crackle. And I don't want any low end. So I'm going to bring that up to about 200 hertz. And now, got a little bit of crunchy crackle in there, right? Listen, you hear it? It's just dirty and more analogy, right? I can pitch it right up, make some brutal sound. But you know what you can do with these semitones? Is we can link that to something like an oscillator. Let's go new LFO. Let's make it move a bit. You hear it? Just a little shoo up in the top. A little bit of vibe on that pad, right? Nice, isn't it? Listen. That's kind of cool. Do you know what's cool about that? It sits with all the rest of the drums in time. Oh damn, we've added another rhythm. Don't want it to be as extreme as it is though, so we're going to dial it back. I'm liking that. I'm liking that a lot. And the other thing I'm going to do, I'm going to go into effects. There's a whole bunch of effects on in here already, but I've got 2 channels. And in here, I have distortion. And we're going to have a little bit of a bit crusher. That gets it pretty noisy there. Mechanical noise is just savage. Tube can be alright. It's a bit of a crap tube emulator though. Excite is just, don't know what that's supposed to be doing. But the bit crusher does its job. Yeah, just making it a bit noisy. And it takes it too far. It's nice, isn't it? Yeah, if we were to turn that off and that off, fair to say that's a pretty different patch now, isn't it? Is it fair to say that we started with a preset and we've evolved this into our own thing? I think it is. So let's switch those on, those on. We're going to save as in case we have any massive cock-ups. That's now called Under's 80s DnB pad, and that's a lovely job. Alright, so in this next little bit here, I want to build a bit more into the introduction, and I want to play around with using delay to kind of build that vocal ramp up we did before, to then go over that little voice drop and then build up again and use it as part of like the ramp up and transition. I'm going to play with a little bit of delay in this section here, and I'm going to make use of the tape delay in Logic. So we're going to go into delay, into tape, into stereo. We're just going to have this carry over a little bit. We could leave it on, say, 1/4. We're going to play with a little bit of the feedback control. We want to just play with this into this section here. And what we're going to do is kind of make a little ramp up into where the drums come in. That happens a fair bit later, right? All the way up here. We're gonna let it sort of die for that bit and then just here. So how are we gonna do that? Some careful automation with the feedback and some like tweaky control then. Again, don't need low, so low cut always. Have a new lane, tape delay, and we're gonna take feedback. Now what we need to do is we need to kind of pump the feedback a little bit, like whoop, give it loads of energy, and then we can like take it away again, sort of here. What we need to do then is once it's sort of been taken away, we need to really start feeding it again. And this is like just big time trial and error and figuring out how it's going to work. Cool, so it got too low before pumping it right back up was possible. So that's still there, but we need to bring this back and we need to pump it back in a little bit sooner. There we go, so we can hear it starting to raise. So and we're going to have to just keep controlling that. What we can do is we can control all three of these points now. So we can press T. We can grab the marquee tool and I can grab 3 points like that. Now, when I get the point marker back like that, I can just bring them all down like so. That is just about perfect, right? So I just want to take a minute here just to clean up this transition. Like Makoto's track, it just drops out of nowhere. I kind of like having some kind of more of a build up. So I'm just gonna have a little play around, maybe like reverse something here, give a bit more of a space to it, but just something better than... Yeah, I just want something that kind of like signals what's coming. Got. Take you, chop that part off, use the old reverse trick, line that up a little bit tighter. This might need slamming to be a bit louder, but that's kind of cool. And the other thing that kind of forgotten or omitted is there's a vocal that hits on every one of each bar. And I put it in the percussion loop initially. We could actually just take the percussion loop and chop it out of there. Yeah, it just goes like this. You've got this percussion loop in your project. You've downloaded it. I'd be kind of inclined to like maybe grab the very classic vocal sample from the Think Break or something like that and pop that in there, but just sort of where we're at. We can give it a dB of gain back in the soft clipper as well. Maybe 2. Maybe this would be dangerous to do 3. I like that. That's kicking through a little bit more for me. I'm feeling that a bit more. I think we can start building this section out a bit more now as well. So what we can do, we can grab this whole thing here, just loop it. And what we need to do is remember that that odd kick didn't happen at the start of bar 1, does come back later. So we're going to put you in here. We've got like this double roll off and we need to take our kick pattern here, that back as well. And we just keep the same bass line, the same loop going through this section. We introduce the vocal in again, and we need to give it a kind of like wavy filtered effect that's going on in Makoto's tune. It's pretty actually on point, but I'm going to still be ruthless and do it. So what we'll do, we'll switch this on here, and what we can do, if we zoom in a little bit, it will show us slicing. Perfect, that we have slicing. We're going to use these slice points here, and we're literally going to quantize it 1/4. Just going to make those really rigidly on here. I like that. So in the Makoto style, there's kind of like a phaser effect going on as well. So we'll go down into modulation and let's see what we can get. It's kind of a tremolo phaser type thing. Let's figure out how he has done it. Right, so we're getting partially there by using the phaser set up like this, and a kind of 65% depth tremolo at 1/8. The other thing is there is a delay happening as well. I suspect it's just directly on the channel in this case, so we can make use of the tape delay again. That's going to do what we need here. We don't need any of the low ends. We're going to bring that up to like 260-ish. We don't need the extreme high end. We still want 100% dry. We want more wetting. A 1/4 seems to be about right. Cool. Now it doesn't happen the whole time. There's definitely some automation to control it. So let's automate the wet control and take it out, put it in at the key moment. Let's just draw that in like so. Now we should have. Cool. It just accents that last bit off. And now that would now roll nicely into the next section. And what we can do with this, make sure it's right down at 0, because 0 will leave it where we had everything set prior, and anything we push it up will be like a exponential value essentially. Bump it up right here, but bring it down straight away. Right, we need to determine how much. What we'll do now, we'll just directly automate the filter. We can go alchemy, filter 1, filter cutoff. Yeah, so we've just got a little something more opening up right at the start there. Right, so here into the second 16, we're going to start bringing these guys back in here. Start making use of the pads again. And we start with kind of an odd scenario. It's going to start like this, not resolve. And then the second pan does the same thing, but doesn't get to resolve because it's cut off by a break here. And then we move into a very different section that then quickly snaps back to this. So we're going to use the same, literally the same pad that we created before. You might want to tweak and play around with the automations a bit, but so here we go. Now what I think I'll do here to make sure it doesn't get in the way of anything else is we'll use the exact same compressor that's taking out of the baseline, and we'll put that on the pads. And because it's being triggered via a sidechain, it's not going to affect anything else. So, it won't happen at the start, for example, because that kick's not in there. And now it helps it move out, and we're going to take it a bit deeper on the pads. When we look at mixing, maybe we'll automate the low end out of the pads as well, but for the time being, pretty good So in this section, all we're really doing is copying over the other section. So we've doubled it up, and then we're going to make some relatively minor changes. So we've taken out the little vocal that hits on the first of each bar. We're then looking at the vocal layer we had, the hold my hands up. We've taken all the bottom end of that and some of the top end to make it more of like a phone kind of style. And then on the bass line, we're just using that same automation we have right at the start of the initial 16 bars. But instead, we're having that as our accent at the start of each first bar. Pop out a little bit more, and we've used the same like vocal riser that we used in the intro, bringing that back. That's literally it. It's the only change. And then in the breakdown here, we've made a little halftime drum section. So we've done a new percussion layer here, just using the Latin percussion again. Copy and paste our section all over again, going into the outro right here. Copy that whole lot over, do that drop section there. And right there, we've pretty much built the track. We just let it fade out like that. Okay, we've built out the foundation of the track now. Now what I want to do is look at kind of mixing and getting things into a slightly better balance. But the first thing I want to do here is arrange everything so it's in a sensible order, not the order of creation. So I'm going to color and rename pretty much every channel and get it organized into a fashion that makes sense so I can look at it and just know where everything is. All right, so we bust all the drums together before, so if we solo this out, we can see these are now all nicely organized up here, and these are all the break related tings. I felt the little vocal chop should sit in there, even though I've kept it down with the other vocals. Kind of makes sense to me that it's there. There's an EQ applied across the breaks. You can hear that balance change there. It's just a little bit tighter. All super subtle, like biggest change there, like 2 dB. I am going to squish it just a little bit with a compressor. I'm going to dial the attack up so that it seems like it's at the right place. That feels about right to me. Now, I only want to take it back by a couple of dB. This ratio will be absolutely fine. And just take the threshold back a little bit. And release timing 174, going to want to be around like 86 region. It's coming back on a 64th then. Just gluing that in there just a little bit. Can give it a dB back pretty comfortably if we wanted to, but yeah, we're peaking up here at -2.2. Our overall mix is going to be a little bit headroom anyway, so we can probably just leave that as it is. Bumping along nicely. I don't think it needs any extra flavour. We've got loads of processing going on with the drums overall, and a little bit of balance with the EQ. It's pretty nice. I think that's all we really need there. The other thing we need to sort of address is the bass. I don't need to give it a bus, it's just here. Now, we made use before of the compressor, just being ducked back with the kick, the Makoto style kick. I'm going to bring that down after the limiter here. Keep it ducking. The limiter can stay there. I'm going to put an EQ in beforehand. Drop off any extreme lows. Realistically, it can probably come up to like 25. We don't need anything below there. That was 35. 18 slope, just to get rid of anything that Alchemy's generating below there that we can't see, don't need. There's loads of control then with that limiter. All of the sound is really tweaked within the Alchemy preset itself. You know, we've designed it in there using the effects, the EQ, back compressor, and everything's on there. I don't think we really need to do anything else within here. It sounds good as it is. Might give it a little boost here up at 2K, so when it does come in, just lashes the ear a bit more. Maybe 1K. Or in between the two up here. And there is something going on. It's going to be around 400 to 500 hertz range. Probably going to be one of these. It's just not a particularly nice frequency. So let's figure out what. That there that's whistling higher up. There. That's not too out of place though. I'm hearing something. Oh, lower down. There, I'm not particularly liking that region. So do a fairly narrow dip out, just a couple of dB, take away from it. And I actually kind of like the boosting up here, so we're going to get pretty gnarly in here with the EQs, but right there is kind of like a nice tone. So to extend that out a little bit like that. Just A-B it. That just picks up my ear a little bit more, a little bit nicer. I think we can take that out a bit more. Okay, I'm liking that in context with the break. I think everything's basically there. We've maybe got some volume adjustments to do in this section here. Like these kicks just come in way too hard. There you go, and it's switched into the other section and the drums are the right level. I like switch up drops, just ridiculous. Alright, the little intro break here peaked ever so slightly, so the way I'm just going to control that. I think the main thing to address now is if we listen to a part of the track where everything's in, so here, we're going to look at the master bus and get this up to, you know, a reasonable level. What I'm going to do here is going to get a LUFS meter in, so I've got a rough idea. We can go loud with this tune. It's not like we're putting it out to streaming only. It's a project for you guys to download and then mangle up in any way that you see fit. I'm going to switch the audio of those. I think we want to compress this first before we look at any EQ. We want to give it some real level. I'm going to keep it on Platinum Digital. We can give it, again, just a few dB. I think we found before that like 30 to 40 milliseconds, relatively slow attack. And we're going to have a nice fast release in like 20 millisecond range. And we just want to keep the track under control, basically. A couple of dB. on digital, it's super transparent, and we can see what it's doing there. We can give that comfortably, we're going to give it comfortably 2 dB back, and we're going to dial it back a touch further. That's just doing some control. Auto release can come off as well. Now if we want a bit of character to it, which I don't think this needs, the transparency is good, we put another compressor after it with the studio FET, doing basically the same thing, compressing after the compressor, but like maybe with a faster attack. Now I want to check out the balance of the overall track, and from what I'm hearing, we could benefit with some of this area coming up a bit. Loudness wise, we're in the ballpark a little bit, but not massively, but we've got this guy on here to adhere to that. We can do -0.1 ceiling, true peak detection, stick that on. Optimal look ahead, sure. Alright, we're kind of approaching the ballpark of where we want to be. Now what I'm going to do here is I'm going to put the stereo output in here, and I'm going to automate this master. I don't want the intro to be mega loud, and I want to allow us to properly slam that section where we strip everything back and we're just going that dark DnB kind of sound. So really easy the way we do it. Right click over here and we can pop this guy into the main channel effectively. We utilize that little bit of space just to bring us back. Let's not bring it all the way back though. Here we can maybe use that whole build up. Let's see the whole thing in context.